You were the lead author on the first ever background paper on youth and climate change. Can you run us through what you guys found there?
Okay, I will just do that very quickly. So during this paper, I think one of the most significant things that we found with young people and climate adaptation, and the focus was on climate adaptation because, as I said at the beginning of our conversation, Tom, we don't feel the impact of climate change at the same level. So as part of that, a lot of people have been pushing for us to plant more trees, to eat less meat, to reduce our flights, and all these things which are aimed at reducing our carbon footprint. Very important, very significant. At the same time, we know that in East Africa, the floods are really up to their peak. We know that along the Sahel region in sub-Saharan Africa, the droughts are insane. If the rain comes, they come in very high quantities, and then you have high precipitation leading to floods. We know that in Southeast Asia, if you look at Cyclone Amphan, I mean, this is disastrous, causing a lot of havoc. These are locations where you realize that all the things we're talking about on mitigation, less flight, less meat, plant more trees, and all these things, important. But look, we need solutions today for people that can protect them today. So if we all do all the things that we want to do on mitigation, it doesn't save that community that lives closer to the Mekong Delta or close to any of these wetland areas in Southeast Asia. It doesn't help all the communities along the Sahelian Strip in sub-Saharan Africa. These are changes that will come probably after another century. It's going to take a long time for all these changes to occur. So which means that now we need climate adaptation solutions to help protect lives and secure livelihoods and dignity of people who are in these high-risk hotspot zones. And this is why adaptation is very, very important, that we think of solutions like in the end, I mean, I say that mitigation is the best adaptation. Then we don't even have to think about adaptation. There's no problem. Just that we are too late in the conversation that the climate crisis is such a big problem now that we have to mitigate, but also there are people now who need safety and we need to work with them to protect lives. And hence that was the focus on how young people understand adaptation and why in the advocacy of young people, adaptation is not yet highlighted, but mostly it's about mitigation. And what we found was that it's simply because a lot of young people do not really understand what adaptation is. So there's a knowledge capacity which is limited. And rather, it's easier to advocate on what is mainstream. And when I say mainstream, it's mostly what you will hear being written about, talking sort of mainstream media, what is being talked about in sort of your typical news articles. And you will agree with me that there's been a lot of conversations around all the mitigation measures. I mean, tree planting is so standard. Everybody knows about this as a solution, right? Mm-hmm. Eating less meat is very, very standard. Almost a lot of people know that this is a solution, even if they don't practice it, they know. We know that. I mean, flying less is certainly something we have to do. Cutting your carbon footprint. We know these measures are very important, but not enough communication is done about those who are seeing the impact today and things we can do today to support them. So this was the challenge that we saw that hence a lot of young people then talk about what is more mainstream, and hence we need to sort of work with institutions to produce knowledge content to complement the existing knowledge that young people have, particularly on youth, that they are able to understand that, okay, we need these carbon emission reduction strategies, but we also need to support communities today. But a second part of that was also realizing that there are huge institutional barriers and lack of credibility for young people. And of course, this is very context specific, but in some contexts, it's also very global, that young people have been long regarded as the vulnerable group, the people who need to help. They will live in the future. They are the future leaders. We need to help them. And so that comes from a place of weakness rather than a place of strength, right? And hence how institutions engage with young people with this mindset of we need to help them. We need to offer them. We need to give them. That changes the narrative than when we want them to think of we need to bring them on board. Not like they have to come to us to help us, but they have to bring us on board to help them. And that is a completely different narrative that, oh, they are more faster in the way they think, they are more adaptive in the way they do things, they are adapting to new forms of lifestyle and livelihood that is better for the future. They are more technologically advanced than we are. So let's bring them on board and see how they can help us fix this problem. So these were very two different narratives. And part of the paper was also discovering that, yeah, institutions clearly see young people as the target group, beneficiaries of their actions, rather than seeing them as more implementers or stakeholders who will help them achieve their target of sort of providing a safe space and a healthy planet for everyone. And of course, the lack of credibility of young people, what ties to the education part of saying that they don't know the details, they don't understand the full picture. They are not, they don't understand the whole thing. Wait till you get to parliament, you see how difficult this is. I mean, you're not in that room, so you won't understand. And these are the common excuses we get from decision makers, right? Like, oh, wait till you are there, you understand how it looks like. Wait till you don't understand the full picture yet. And I think these things are, of course, we don't understand the full picture, true, but if you want us to understand the full picture, then let us understand the full picture. Create a system that allows that. And that is to say that we need an institutional framework that really builds the capacity of young people to see the broader picture of this climate crisis debate and see how they can support on that. But if you keep us out of the politics and you put us on the edge of advocacy alone, on the edge of being beneficiaries of your framework and your policies, then of course we don't understand the full picture, then we can't help you. And then we will keep complaining. So it was that kind of finding. And lastly, to talk of finance as a big challenge, particularly when it comes to adaptation and getting communities to adapt, finance is a significant part because, of course, the impacts are happening in places where economies are poor and weaker. And hence we need to have a financial flow from countries that have the resources. But again, the financial flow should also go in a way that they are not just sitting with central governments, because then it becomes another political windmill that you have to navigate, but rather get the financial flow to get to communities where the help and where the impact makes a lot of difference, and where you need to help people immediately and as soon as possible because the next flood or the next drought is coming up. So there is sort of a long explanation, but these were really key takeaways from this paper. And also to then discover that young people are using entrepreneurship to really transform the game. Even though some of them are not calling themselves climate activists or anything of that. So particularly in Global South, in Sub-Saharan Africa, in Latin America, we witnessed that a lot of young people are using entrepreneurship and social enterprise to really solve critical community challenges to climate change. But they don't even regard themselves as activists, right? They don't even engage in this conversation, but they are really the ones on the ground actually saving communities from the next flood and the next droughts.
I find that so fascinating, especially when we're looking at these older generations that I guess are trying to nurture young people in a way like, hey, you guys can be everything that we weren't. You can